vision comes to me. Vicious, grotesque, lustful. The stench of death, sounds of agony, the ritual of Death Night. I feel it in the meadows. I sense it in the air. Your wickedness growing. Chaos spreading throughout my beautiful land. And I grow weaker. The sword of Cain. The maker of widows. I know you seek it. But your efforts are futile. For I, Alariel the Ever-Queen, mother of all, will bring the light to end your darkness, Crone Halibron.
What is going on, everybody? Jumbo Thick here, and back with a bit of a different video than my normal stuff. This is mostly due to the fact that we finally have some news for Total War Warhammer 2. As most of you well know, I love Total War, especially the Total War Warhammer franchise in particular, and I am just really excited that they finally announced the newest DLC. For those of you that aren't in the know, it is announced for May 31st, so very soon, in about 13 days, if my math is correct, from this video. Yep, 13 days. So, and as you saw from the trailer, it is going to be the Queen and the Crone. So you have Alariel the Ever-Queen versus Crone Halibron of the Dark Elves. It is a epic matchup, not exactly one that I would have expected, to be honest with you. Halibron is more of a foil with, in my opinion, with Aelithanar. Or actually, honestly, she's more at odds with Morathi than anyone else. But that's neither here nor there. So, what is this DLC? First off, it's going to be a Lord pack, meaning it's just 2 Lords, a few units mixed in, and possibly some new mechanics. They did something very similar for the King and the Warlord DLC involving Skarsnik and Belagar, the dwarves and the goblins. And they had that unique mechanic where they had to recapture correct 8 peaks. Very good stuff indeed. It just gives a mix-up on an older faction. So we can expect new mechanics, you get new lords. Sometimes, and in this case, you get a new lord for the individual faction as well. For instance, you got a Goblin Warlord, Night Goblin War Boss, something like that. I think Goblin War Boss. I think it was Night Goblin War Boss is what it was for Skarsnik, and then you had the Rune Lords. Yeah, you had the Rune Lords for the dwarves. That's who it was. Okay, sorry, I stumbled around on that one. So it's only $7.99. That is very cheap, guys. Very cheap for what you are getting and the amount of diversity you're going to get out of this pack. So, on to this. So you're getting new Legendary Lords, new campaign mechanics, new heroes for the High Elves, new Lords for the Dark Elves, and new units. Plus, we're going to be getting the Regiments Around, which also Norska and the Regiments of Renown for all of the old factions are supposed to be in with this update. So when they do this free LC update, that's going to be in conjunction with this release, because they tend to do this. We will be getting Norska back. Thank God. Thank God. It's going to make the campaign so much better, so much more interesting. And we'll be getting all of our Regiments of Renown for all the previous races, which is, so much better. So much better. Going to make the game so much more fun. So, who are these people? Now, I have already done a kind of video on the Cult of Cain, and Crone is the leader of the Cult of Cain. So you guys should know who she is if you've been paying attention to any of my lore videos. But Alariel, I haven't done the High Elves yet, and I hope to get into them soon after I finish up my current lore stuff. So Alariel is actually the Everqueen. She's married somewhat to the Phoenix King. So in this case, the Phoenix King would be Finnabar the Seafarer, who's in Lothran. And I say kind of married because it's like a tradition, but it's kind of different in High Elf society. They're allowed to kind of date who they wish, as it is. So Alariel is actually somewhat in a relationship with her bodyguard, who is Tyrion, from Tyrion and Teclis, the legendary lord who is already in the game. So they kind of have a romantic thing going on. And we'll get into that when I finally get into the lore stuff. But you guys want to hear about the pack, I'm sure. So, if you can't tell by the trailer we just witnessed, Alariel is going to have a very different feel than the other High Elf legendary lords, or even the other High Elf lords, period. So, for one thing, she's going to be a mixed caster, similar to Teclis. But she's going to have life magic and high magic, which is going to be very strong. She's going to be regenerate characters, and then that high magic is really good at buffing your troops, kind of keeping them alive. So she'll have that, as well as she'll have access to an Elven Steed, an Ethelmar Steed, and a Great Eagle, which I want to say she was on foot mostly in the tabletop. Don't quote me on that. She might have had a horse. I think she was only on foot, but it's more practical to put the lords on some kind of mount, at a minimum of a horse. The eagle makes sense for her. It kind of distinguishes her from the rest of the pack. So, and she can also recruit forest spirits, dryads, treekin, and treemen. That is crazy good. So she is going to be kind of a hybrid of the high elf and the wood elf faction, in that she can only bring the tree monsters. But even just bringing them, that adds a whole new dynamic to her campaign. And it's going to be very similar to the way Ark in the Black plays for the Tomb Kings. And then we move on to Crone. Like I said, she is the leader of the Cult of Cain. She is one of the oldest beings in Warhammer lore, or in the Warhammer world to this day. The only ones that are older, well, obviously besides like the Slan and things like that, the only ones who are older are Malekith and Marathi. Those are the only living ones that I can think of that are as old as her. She is ancient. So hence her haggard appearance. And she's kind of has more of a beef with Marathi than anybody else, but they are pitting her against Alariel just because, well, first off, it's a cool name for a DLC, and second off, they needed to find something to pit these people together with to justify the pack. So she is haggard in appearance, and as you can see, Marathi is not. And that has a lot to do with the Cauldron of Blood and how you can rejuvenate their vitality. The Dark Elves do this. It's a sacrificial thing. I kind of got into it in my lore video, but to sum it up, essentially Marathi has been not completely forthcoming with the secrets of the Cauldron of Blood, and therefore Crone has to live as an old withered husk the majority of the year, except for on Death Night, the festival in Harganeth, where they basically, it's similar to the Purge, where they just go around killing anybody and everybody, and it's completely legal. And yeah, she bathes in the blood, rejuvenates herself, so then she becomes very beautiful. And matter of fact, she's one of the most beautiful beings, second probably to Marathi in the Warhammer world. And it's she kind of has a messed up, psyche about this, because she can rejuvenate herself and she can be happy and beautiful again, which is what she wants. But it's limited. It wears off within like a few days, and she returns back to her withered, aged form. So that's kind of what she is and what she's about. So she is going to be in charge of the Dark Elves. And what is going to make her campaign different is that she is going to be all about the Cult of Cain. So the Cult of Cain is actually opposed to chaos. They don't like chaos. And they also are all about, witch elves, executioners. These all come from Harganeth, and they all are based out of that city. So her campaign is going to be based around getting a hold of these units, witch elves and Harganeth executioners, and of course the new unit, the Sisters of Slaughter. And she can make them very, very deadly through her unique skill trees. And yeah, anyways, it's going to be awesome. She's going to be able to buff these troops up so much that they are going to be insanely good. And from what I understand, they're also going to be cheaper. So they're going to make them cheaper, and they're going to make them better and more survivable, so that late game, your witch elves are going to be a force to reckon with. Unlike how they are now, which they are very similar to Slayers right now, in that they're really good, but they're really fragile. They get destroyed often unless you combine them with multiple units. But that's neither here nor there. So you're getting the 2 lords in this pack. Then you're also getting the new units. And the new units are, so good. We almost have an entire Dark Elf roster now. Almost. We're only missing a couple units. So we are getting the Sisters of Avalorn for the High Elves. And these are archers, essentially, is what they usually are. They're the warriors of Avalorn, the actual province. They are apparently good with both blade and bow. So they're not going to be a spear infantry, which I thought that they would be. I thought they would be very similar to Lothran Seaguard, to be honest. So they're going to be closer to the Shades, I guess. But they're going to have magical and flaming attacks, which is crazy good against certain factions. I mean, if you bring some Sisters of Avalorn against the Tomb Kings, you've just destroyed most of their army, since they're all very dependent on their, lack of fire being present on the battlefield. So you're getting the Sisters of Avalorn. Then we're getting the Shadow Warriors, and these are more of a unit that should be out of Nagaraith under Aelithanar, but they had to put it under Alariel, and then we're getting Aelithanar as the free LC. So honestly, these should be for him. But anyways, if you don't know who the Shadow Warriors are, they're actually the remnants of the Nagaraith people. I know this Nagaraith, it's going to get confusing with the names. They are what's left of the loyalists that come from Nagaroth. They still live there. It's kind of a desolate wasteland. And Aelithanar, the Shadow King, has trained them into these ridiculously good archers, and they're just like stealth murderers. So think of them as the High Elves version of Shades. That's exactly what they are. They're the High Elf version of Shades, and they are fantastic. They're going to have Vanguard deployment, Stalk, and long-range bows. Now, I wish that they had the AP skill, if we're being honest, because that's something that the High Elves are lacking right now. They're lacking a lot of armor-piercing units, and an armor-piercing bow unit would be fantastic. So, at the minimum, they're going to be very good at ambushing and catching people off guard, and possibly even, if they give them fast movement speed, like I think they should have, they should be able to sneak up behind the enemy and get some flanking shots in. So, very good as well. Now, then now we move on to the Dark Elves. Well, actually, let's hit up the rest of the High Elves. So we're also getting the Handmaiden as a unique hero for the High Elves. And the Handmaidens are, essentially, they're kind of like the elite of the Sister of Avalorn. They're kind of like the Maiden Guard. In the lore, at least. That's the way they work. So they're going to have a unique specialization in their skill tree, enabling them to influence diplomacy, trade, and influence to bolster their resilience in battle and to make them peerless archers. So they're going to be an archer type of lord for the High Elves, which they don't have, actually. They don't have an archer unit. Let me think. Nope, they don't have an archer unit. So that's actually... So that makes sense for them. That makes sense for them to have the Handmaidens for the Everqueen. Now moving on to the Dark Elves. We are getting the Sisters of Slaughter. And I have been waiting waiting patiently for the Sisters of Slaughter. The Sisters of Slaughter are essentially gladiators, is what they are. They take what the witch elves do. The witch elves are all about spilling blood for Cain. The Sisters of Slaughter are actually worship a different god. They worship the Lord of Blades, Eldrazer. And in that idea, their temple is the battlefield, and they believe in perfecting their skills to the utmost, to the point where they've gotten so good at fighting that they challenge themselves. They don't wear a lot of armor. They are very swift, and they fight with a small shield and a whip, like a barbed whip. And the reason is, it's so that it's a skill. It's a skill thing. It's basically, this is how good I am. I can take on opponents with just a whip and a shield. That's all I need. I don't need a sword. I don't need anything else. So they are very, very good in combat. Now, the way that they're going to work in here is they're going to have poisonous attacks. That makes them really good. They're going to cause fear. They'll have murderous mastery, just like the Harganeth Executioners. And I think the Witch Elves might have murderous mastery. I think they do. Don't quote me on that. They might. And they can trigger the Trial of Blades augment when losing in melee, improving their combat abilities. And this is similar to, in the tabletop, I believe they had a rule where if they were matched up against an opponent that was superior to them, because that's the reason why they join armies in the first place, is to fight better opponents, because they've run out of opponents in the arena. And whenever they went up against an opponent that was better than them, they would get more powerful. They would get better stats, almost meeting the challenge, essentially. So they're a fantastic unit. I am excited to see them, needless to say. I'm gushing enough. So then we move on to the Doomfire Warlocks. Very similar to the Sisters of the Thorn for the Wood Elves. They are an elite magic cav, fast cav at that. They deal both magic and poison attacks. That is crazy good, especially for a light unit. Oh my gosh, that's going to be fantastic for doing root charges and for chasing down routing units or mopping up skirmishers. Now, they also will have Murderous Prowess, not Murderous Mastery, and they can have 2 bound spells. This is what makes them similar to the Sisters of Thorn. They have Soul Blight, which is pretty good for lowering leadership and whatnot, and then a Doom Bolt, but it's a lesser Doom Bolt. Now, those of you that may not use Doom Bolt in-game, Doom Bolt is actually surprisingly good at sniping big targets like monsters, single entity units, even lords. And the Lesser Doom Bolt is going to be kind of like a mini Spirit Leech. Think of it like that. It's just it's not a homing magical attack that hits a single target, and it does pretty decent damage. So they're going to help you out with taking down single entities. Now the Doomfire Warlocks, in the lore at least, I do believe I did go over these in my Dark Elf roster. But the Doomfire Warlocks are actually wizards that were captured by Malekith, and Malekith, since this prophecy was made about him being overthrown by a male sorcerer, has forbidden all male sorcerers from existing. And so, whenever he catches one, he, through these obscene rituals, binds their souls to Slaanesh, essentially feeding them to Slaanesh, and they are dying. Their life is being ripped away by Slaanesh. That's why they have that haggard, gross-looking appearance. And the only way for them to stop their souls from being completely eaten is to kind of subsidize their soul with others. So they have to perform rituals and go and capture people in combat and sacrifice them in their stead. This doesn't get them off the hook. It just lessens the time. It extends the time that it takes for Slaanesh to ultimately eat their soul. So rather disturbing, but yeah. And then finally for the Dark Elves, we are getting the Supreme Sorceress as a Lord. This is really good because there's not a lot of diversity right now in the Lord choices for the Dark Elves. You only have a prince and a princess. That's all you get. And the one difference is one's good with not a prince and a princess. Are they prince and princess? No. Dreadlord and Lady? Dread Lady? Yeah, Dreadlord, Dread Lady. Man, you guys are going to tear my backhind up on fooling that up with my high elves there for a second. So one of them has a crossbow, and the other one is good with sword and shield. That's the only difference right now. Otherwise, they're exactly the same. So we're going to be getting a sorceress, which I think we should have had with Marathi, to be honest. But they're sticking it in now, so beggars can't be choosers. So they are new sorceresses, and what's good is they're getting more lores of magic. So we're going to have the lore of fire, the lore of dark, the lore of shadows, which we already have right now with the current sorceress that we have in the game. But now we also have access to the lore of beasts and the lore of death, which are... The lore of death is just fantastic all around, no matter what. And it's going to make them very powerful as lords. The lore of beasts, in conjunction with dark elf units, is going to be substantial. It is going to be ridiculously good, guys. Because it's all about not only hurting your opponents, but buffing your troops to such an extent that these already elite units that you have become even more so and will be able to overpower enemies very easily. Now, in addition to that, we're also getting access to Manticores, finally. They should have been in the Dark Elf roster from the beginning, in my opinion, but they're putting them in as mounts. Now, they haven't really said, at least what I've read, they haven't said if they're going to be just a standard unit that you can just recruit, similar to Hydras and, dragons, things like that. So I guess we'll find out. I don't know. They're at least, at a minimum, they're a mount, and you can at least summon one with the Lore of Beasts, if I remember correctly. So... then we are getting all of the regiments of renown. And there's a lot of them. And we might as well go through all of them while we're at it. So for Alariel, we are getting the Scions of Mathlan. And Mathlan is the elven god of the sea. If you want more information on him, you should check out my Elven Pantheon video. And you'll be able to hear what you need to hear about Mathlan. So they are a spearman unit. They'll have an Aura of Protection, which applies a war save to nearby units when mana is above 50%. And they'll have an expert charge defense against all. So that ward save is against nearby units as well. That is crazy good, but you have to have more than 50% of your mana. So it encourages you, similar to the Phoenixes. The Phoenixes have buffs like this too, where they imbue aura effects on their troops if you have a lot of mana in reserve. Which is, I always like having to manipulate the gameplay mechanics to kind of get a unique outcome in how you play an army. So that's actually pretty cool. I like that a lot. Then we get the Pure Main Company, which are the White Lines of Trace. They will have Guardian as a passive ability, and they'll be able to sunder armor on contact. Sundering armor is ridiculously good. Now, if I remember correctly, the Pure Main Company are the group of White Lions that stood with, was it Tyrion? I think it was Tyrion, and he helped him repel Malekith when he was coming through, trying to get to the Sword of Cain, trying to get through Ulthuan. Don't quote me on that, but I think it has some. I think if I remember correctly, that's who they are. I'll look this up later. Anyways, so then we move on to the Keepers of the Flame, which are a unique Phoenix Guard unit. They will have magic attacks. That's really good for bypassing anybody that might have a ward save or physical resistance, like Plague Monks, things like that. So they'll be good for that. And then they will have the Mark of Ashurian, which means that they will burst into flame upon death and deal damage to any nearby enemies, similar to the Death Blow trait for the Slayers. This is kind of an interpretation of that the Phoenix Guard are blessed by Asurian, and that's why they don't speak. That's why they cause fear, because they're completely silent. And essentially this is the god's power just making itself be known when they die. And it's pretty cool, so it's going to make them very deadly. Then we get the Storm Riders, which are Lothran Sea Guard that cause fear, have Vanguard, and they can shoot and move. That is ridiculously good, guys. Not only are you getting an archer unit that can shoot and move with the High Elves now, but you're also getting an archer unit that can defend itself and has fear with spears. So that is that's such a good unit. And then we are getting the Grey, which are an elite unit of Shadow Warriors, which have Loic's Shroud ability, and Loic is the trickster god, if I remember correctly. And it increases speed and reduces detection range significantly for enemies to spot them. Oh wow, that's really good. So you can use it to really sneak up on people. And they will have snipe, so they can shoot and remain hidden. Very, very good. Then we have, for the Sisters of Avalorn, we have the Queen's Court Guard, which will have Encourage, which is good for keeping everybody in the fight, all that, keeping their leadership up. In addition to a hero or a lord, they'll have the same ability. And they have the Banner of Avalorn ability, which increases Winds of Magic recharge rate. That's really good, too, for any kind of caster lords, which couples well with Alariel, since she's a caster lord. And then we move on to the Dragon Princes. We have the Fireborn, which have a bonus versus large and fire attacks. That is really good. The fire attacks are kind of whatever. But the bonus versus large, the High Elves have a very bad problem with anti-large. Your anti-large is going to be either Spearman or Phoenix Guard. That's all you got. And so they really need something else, and I'm glad they at least have one unit. They have another anti-large unit in the Dragon Princes, which, coupled with the physical resist that the Dragon Princes get, that's going to be pretty powerful. Then we move on to the Heralds of the Wind, which are an elite unit of Illyrian Reavers, which have increased speed, so they're even faster. Illyrian Reavers are already ridiculously fast. They're even faster now. And they have superior melee stats, so they're going to be even better in melee, and they're already really good in melee. So that is a fantastic unit. And now we move on to Hellebron's units. So we have the Hellebrani, which are Dread Spears, and they're going to have poison attacks and expert charge defense against all. That is fantastic. Poison attacks on any spear unit makes them so good. If you don't believe me, check out the, what are they called? It's the Poison Spear unit for the Tomb Kings. It could be damn near a late game unit with how good it is. It's able to pull down units with it. All that poison damage, you cannot be underestimated, especially on a spear unit when you have them face off against the units they're supposed to fight. So that's really good. Then you have the Sisters of Singing Doom, which are witch elves that cause terror. That is surprisingly more good than you would think. When you use witch elves as a routing force, as a flanking force, with the added benefit of terror now, they're going to be able to just tear through some units and rout them way more quickly than normal. Then we have the Blades of the Blood Queen, which are a unit of Harganeth executioners. They'll have Guardian, and Guardian, for those of you that don't know, Guardian affects your lord. I believe it gives them a buff of some kind. I don't remember exactly because it was in the Regiments of Renowned, and we haven't seen it much since. I believe it gives them a ward save when they're nearby. So if you couple these executioners with Hellebron, they'll give her a buff when they're within the same vicinity. And they also have Frenzy. That is crazy good. Frenzy's really good, as long as you keep the leadership up. Then we have the Bolt Fiends, which are a Dark Shard unit that has Shield Breaker. That is crazy good, guys. And they have a longer range. The bad thing about crossbows is that usually they have a shorter range than bows. But they're going to have a long range, plus they're going to have Shield Breaker, meaning they can shoot through shields and have a chance of negating the shield. So you could take these guys in conjunction with, one or two more Dark Shards and focus fire a unit of Lothran Sea Guard and possibly penetrate their shield and just wipe them completely, easily. Their shields will do nothing. So that's actually, Shield Breaker is much more beneficial than you might initially think. Then we have Slaanesha's Harvesters, as I said, with the Doomfire Warlocks. And they have the Bound Spell Ward of Pain and Soul Stealer. Holy crap, man. So they're going to be able to regenerate themselves with Soul Stealer. Damn. And they're going to be able to generate... is it Ward of Pain? I think that raises Winds of Magic, I think. And then you can increase health. Anyway, Soul Stealer is just a really good spell right now. It might be a little overpowered, but they're going to be able to regenerate their health. That's fantastic. depending on how good the Doomfire Warlocks are. If they're anything like the Sisters of the Thorn, they're going to be a very niche unit, and they're going to be very micro-intensive. So I probably won't see a lot of them on a line, I wouldn't think. Then we move into the Knights of the Eben Claw. They are a unit of Dread Knights, which are the melee-focused ones, the heaviest Cold One Knights, that do not rampage. And they have Murderer's Prowess upgraded to... they have Murderer's Mastery. Holy crap, man. Those things better be expensive, because that's the reason why the Cold One units have really good stats, but it's because they have that rampage mechanic and you lose control of them. With this one having the improved stats and then not rampaging, damn, that is going to be a powerful unit. Then we move on to the Chill of Sontar, which is a War Hydra that has Frostbite upon contact. So whenever you engage a unit, they'll get Frostbite. Same thing from the, is it the Wolf Chariots? It's one of the Ice Wolves. Oh, there were Ice Wolves and then there were Trolls. I think it was just the Ice Trolls. It's been a while since I've been able to play Norska. I know it's from the Ice Trolls. They have an effect where it essentially keeps free people from getting away. It slows them down and gives them kind of a debuff. So it's going to have a similar effect to that. And their Fire Breath is also going to have Frost Breath mixed in. That's pretty awesome. So they're doing fire and ice damage at the same time. I'm assuming one of the heads is going to be like a frost head or something. So that's pretty cool. I like War Hydras. And then we have the Raven Heralds, which are a unit of Dark Riders, which are not the greatest. But these are going to be mounted on a Dark Pegasus. A whole unit of Pegasus Riders. So Bretonnia is not the only one with them now. The Dark Elves have a unit of Dark Pegasus Riders, which makes them very good for getting to the units you need them to get to very quickly. Now, we do have a little blurb here at the end. It says, "This is not all we're getting, for the Druchi possess a dark and powerful weapon. When blood runs in rivers and the air is choked with death, the chains will break, and this monstrous secret will be unleashed." Now, there's only 2 units that are missing, well, technically 3, but 2 units mainly that are missing from the roster, the Dark Elf roster at this point. You have the Charybdis, which is a giant sea monster, similar to the, it looks very similar to the War Hydra, except for more gross looking. And then there's also the unit of the Bloodrack Shrine Medusa. With the breaking of the chains and all that, I'm almost positive we're going to be seeing the Bloodrack Shrine, which, if it's going to be what I think it's going to be, the Medusas in Warhammer Fantasy make you bleed from all your pores. It's a pretty terrible way to die if you look at them. And the Bloodrack Shrine is essentially just a huge shrine that the Medusa sits on that has mirrors all over it. So it kind of, anyways, you get the idea. So her appearance is everywhere and people like die from it. And the way it works is, in my opinion, the way it should work in Total War is it should be something similar to a Mortis engine. It should give a terrible, like it should start wasting away. It should start seeping the life, like the blood, out of the enemy within a certain area around it. And it should also boost either the leadership or something of your Dark Elf troops, because the Dark Elves are sadists. And they enjoy inflicting pain, and they wallow in others' misery. And it gives them pleasure whenever they see other people getting hurt. And for that reason, it should give them some kind of buff. So that is going to be it, guys. So be on the lookout, May 31st. I have not quite fixed my my computer yet, so hopefully I got it fixed to where I can actually record some of this stuff for you guys. I can play the game. I'm just having problems with my recording software right now, so hopefully I get it fixed by then. But if not, I've got other gameplay coming, and I'm going to keep you guys up to date with Total War. And of course, I will still be doing more videos. Thank you guys for watching, and I hope to see you all very soon. Have a good day.